Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to start the debate for the candidacy of Vice President, so please settle down. I would like to remind the audience to please maintain the decorum of the debate. We'll proceed with the debates for the candidacy of Vice President now. We have Ms. Aditi Gupta running as an independent candidate, and we have Mr. Ibrahim and Ms. Kimberly running from Akita's party. So before we begin, I'd like to remind you about the format for the debate. We'll start with an intro by the EC, which is ongoing. Then we'll proceed to opening statements by the candidates. Then we'll have Q&A between the candidates. Then we'll proceed to Q&A by the OB, and then we'll have Q&A by the audience, and then we'll have closing statements by the candidates and closing statement by the EC. So without further ado, we'll start with the opening statements. Ms. Aditi, you can begin.
Hello, yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I, Aditi Gupta, stand before you today with immense gratitude as I seek the honor of being here as the Vice President candidate. I'm pursuing a software engineering degree and studying in Year 2, Sem 2 currently. Over the past 2 years in Monash, I've had the privilege of being a part and holding positions in many clubs and committees within our campus. I was a general assistant in the President's Department in Year 1, a part of MUSA SOE in Year 2, the founder and president of the book club that was launched this semester, the year representative of Software Engineering Year 2, the creative officer of the Esports Committee. I was also actively involved with certain clubs like MUMPAC as a director, the MUSA Club, and was selected for the Euro program as well, achieving all of these alongside an internship and a notoriously challenging degree. All this speaks to my time management skills and experience. I mean, who needs sleep, right? I've also had the prior experience with leadership roles within units and heading small teams for particular projects. As a potential VP, my vision is to harness this collective energy efficiently and channel it into something more. My main initiative for 2024 as the VP entails having a platform like a Google Drive folder where students can help each other out by providing valuable resources such as links to videos, necessary texts or papers, or book recommendations. This channel will serve as an ideal learning platform for all interested students and aims to provide streamlined access to educational materials and reduce time students spend on searching for legitimate sources, and it would be reliable as it is by the students, for the students, and of the students. This drive would be accessible from social media platforms such as the MUSA official Instagram page, as it would be advantageous to use the large following it has to spread the word. I will actively coordinate and work with the student body on all other initiatives, ensuring everybody's voices are heard, and to avoid going through with any redundant or harebrained initiatives. The laundry list of ideas, courtesy to the student body's feedback, includes fixing certain washrooms, more sports equipments, adding more food options, all of which was gathered from the sports center notice board. All this would be accomplished by delegating these tasks and collaborating with the respective departments while respecting the extent of my duties as the Vice President, like welfare, CNS, etc. A system for constant feedback will also be implemented via anonymous forms that would be open throughout the year. On the academic front, I would prioritize helping students and advocating for them should there be any case of misconduct and guide them accordingly for the best course of action and make sure they know their rights. Furthermore, I plan to launch a Did You Know series on Instagram as a means of informing students on current academic opportunities and important information such as subsidies and student initiatives. In terms of events, which will be discontinued within my role for next year, I would still initiate a DSTA session with collaboration with other schools to focus on student well-being and orientation. Workshops of common interests such as resume writing and interview preparation will also be considered as they're common amongst all the schools. Lastly, effective communication and the establishment of clear boundaries within MUSA will be the key strategy to prevent misunderstandings and conflicts. I will start early in terms of resource allocation between schools and strategically schedule EAC meetings to minimize room for error in the long run. I would once again express my immense gratitude to all of you considering me for this highly prestigious role, and I look forward to answering any questions you might have later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aditi. Fahim and Ms. Kimberly, you can proceed.
Okay. Good evening to the Election Commission, current President Rashwan, current office bearer Rash Kamal and Kirara, our opposing candidate Aditi, and fellow esteemed students. I am Kimberly, currently a year 1 semester student in the School of Business, majoring Applied Economics.
And I am Ibrahim, currently a year 2 semester 1 student in School of Engineering, majoring in Chemical Engineering. Kimberly and I are from the party Equitas, and we are both honored to be running as Vice President candidates.
Both of us have been serving in MUSA for almost a year now. Myself as an operations officer at MUSA SOB, and for Ibrahim as a year representative in SOE, and a CRO subcommittee for MUIS. Besides being in MUSA, we also share experience in other clubs and have conducted our fair share of internships. I'm currently the Corporate Relations Subcommittee at MUIG. I'm also the Monash Student Ambassador. Aside from being in clubs and societies, I've also done a 3-month internship in KPMG in the field of audit.
And as for me, I'm currently the Community Service Director for Rotary Club of Monash University. Before coming to Monash, I conducted a 6-month internship at Sri Lanka's leading industrial laundry, and I've also interned at John Keel's conglomerate in Sri Lanka for a month. What we both will bring to the table is the utmost professionalism when working, since we both have hands-on experience in the work field. Our leadership stars, organizational skills, and approachability qualify for serving each and every one of you individuals in the coming term of 2024. We look to making your university life favorable one, filled with excitement, and we hope for your support in voting for us. This brings us to our manifesto. Firstly, our focus is on running MUSA as a student support system. Just like how being in MUSA currently has provided us with a slave platform for us to raise and share any concerns we have, besides working in the team, we want to ensure this continues and we can bridge the gap between the students. We intend to consistently advertise about our digital footprint on MUSA's official Instagram page by working closely with the publicity department to maximize on our existing resources available in MUSA. This is so that students are consistently reminded that we have this platform created for them to voice out any of their concerns to us. Additionally, we will also focus on producing content highlighting our aim to address the students' needs. One of our objectives is to build upon the current establishment of MUSA and strengthen the HEXCO relationship, meaning working together with MUSA's president for MUSA's long-term objectives.
We also aim to enforce a culture of strong team spirit and student empowerment within the entire organization of MUSA, where everyone, regardless of their background differences, identity or beliefs, are equally respected, welcome, and heard. We believe that by enforcing such an environment, it encourages members of MUSA to work together seamlessly. This will create a sense of unity, and this is also when working together is made more effective, with ideas being shared freely with one another, and everyone can all strive to achieve common goals. This collaboration can lead to more innovative and more impactful initiatives that benefit the entire student body. Our final manifesto is aimed at increasing branding of all school bodies and presenting more opportunities for cross-collaboration among all members of the Education Affairs Committee. Decision-making based on feedback evidence and enhancing visibility will ensure that the interests of all students in all their respective schools are represented and prioritized, with the motive of boosting well-being and bridging knowledge gaps. Thank you for listening to us, and we are now open to questions.
Thank you, candidates, for the opening statements. Now we'll proceed to Q&A, so please take it away.
Referring to your fourth manifesto point, you have mentioned, and I quote, each school will be presented with the same opportunities and resources. This includes academic and non-academic events to be conducted with the chance of equal access to funds and supplies. Firstly, Vice Presidents are the heads of Education Affairs Committee and do not deal with any non-academic events hosted by all 7 schools and do not provide funds for these events. Nevertheless, The current budget for Education Affairs Committee has been divided amongst all 7 schools equally. So my question is there any other way you can propose to ensure equality amongst the schools?
So like you did mention that our main job is academic related, and my job is just, if I win, my job would be to ensure that this equality is upheld. So there's no initiative that I would take because that's already in place. I would just have to uphold it.
In terms of like non-academic events being hosted by 7 schools, it's in your election guide. What do you have to say about that?
This was before I had all my information ready. This was in the beginning, so I would like to scratch that off of my manifesto now.
It's fine, I understand. You can go ahead.
Could you highlight some of the new initiatives you're starting this next year?
All right, so basically I'm going to refer to our election guide. So one of the initiatives Kimberly and I, especially Kimberly, came up with this idea, but we know that Monash Study App has been developed in-house by Monash University. And we do know that Monash Study App has mentioned on their website as well, saying that they want students' feedback and to make improvements on them. So Kimberly and I have come up with a suggestion, like an innovative framework to gain feedback, basically to have the surveys an option on the Monash Study app, which couldn't be possibly done because it's an in-house app as well. And so basically students don't have to like scan QR codes or like, go through emails and click links and fill in surveys, because every day students use the Monash Study app. And when it's right there, students are going to click on it and submit it. And we will make sure when we are liaising with the developers that the surveys are going to be in a form of a Likert scale. Likert scale is basically a survey you have in your student peer reviews from 0 to 5. So there won't be any like question answers. That will be just like a scale from 0 to 5. And they will have to answer it, and we are sure the surveys can be filled in like 2 to 3 minutes. And information gathered from that and analyzing that data is going to be so faster rather than going through each and every answer. Because these surveys can be used for ESSFS, SETU surveys, as well as for SSLC meetings as well. Since you're a year rep as well, you know how we gain feedback from students and then we propose it to SSLC. Another initiative I think Kimberly and I came up with was basically we have noticed that there is cross-collaboration between the schools in EAC. And we actually want to increase the cross-collaboration to bridge knowledge gaps. Because as a student from engineering, and you're also engineering, you can understand basically our financial literacy is very low. So basically SOE and SOB, for example, having an event to teach financial literacy would be like really beneficial for the future, and it will bridge our knowledge gaps. So basically Kimberly and I have thought about like having a small buffer fund. I don't know if it's like the correct term to say that, but so basically that will be provided to EAC members only if they are able to have a cross-collaborative event with another school. Because we know that our predecessors have already done cross-collaborative events in the EAC, but we would like to see way more to bridge those knowledge gaps and prepare our students for the future.
Okay, so I really like the idea of it being in the app itself, but 2 follow-up questions. One, what challenges do you see with this being implemented, or to implement this in the first place?
Okay, so I think the main challenge to implement the EAC buffer fund would be like getting the budget proposals approved, because I do understand that Monash has a set budget of 540,000 ringgits per tenure. And to fit that budget in that, we will have to like pre-plan, look through like evidence-based decision making and try and see how we could implement it. And secondly, in terms of developing the app application, so I would not say like we are promising this in our tenure, because I do understand, because this is just an idea. This is an initiative, an idea we just came up with. And if it's, the main challenge would be like trying and testing and seeing the feedback and development in the app. So yeah, we do have challenges such like that. We hope to liaise to the particular departments, organizations regarding this, but if so, if we can pull it off, yeah, I think we should be able to do it.
And secondly, it's on a scale of 1 to 5, right? But given our year rep meetings, SSLC meetings and everything, it's usually very specific and they need words. So if this doesn't have words, how would you present what the issue is?
Sorry, so like I didn't like properly explain it. So basically it will be like an FAQ. It'll be like already the question would be there. For example, let me just give you like a hypothetical example saying for an SSLC form, it would be, what do you think about this lecture? Sorry. What do you think about this lecture and how their teaching methods are in terms of you? And you can rate them 1 to 5. Depending on the ratings, let's say like majority people have rated like 5, and like there is 20 to 30% who have rated a 1. Then we know, okay, there is some problem to this for that 30% to have voted for this. And then we could like go back to that and rectify like what's the issue by like bringing up like statistical data analysis in the EAC meetings, and even in CEC meetings it could be used for basically their planning. So yeah.
But I do think that them giving you specific feedback would be more helpful rather than a scale. So if that option could be there, that would be beneficial as well. Yeah.
We do understand that in certain areas where you need to give feedback, it's not just about grading it on a scale of 0 to 5, for example. So in that sense, we do, like we mentioned, like just now Ibrahim mentioned, as part of our initiative to conduct this, it would be more of like students spending 2 to 3 minutes on it. So that means students will be given the opportunity to also type out written feedback, but it would not take that long. It would take between 3 minutes at most, because we want to keep the attention span of students to go to the Monash Study app and give the feedback.
And again, back to the audience, just in case this is just an idea from Kimberly and I. So yeah, and as Aditi mentioned in a question, we will face quite a bit of challenges, but we will try our best to, address your needs and do whatever's best for the students. So yeah. You want to go ahead?
The last question of your election guide stated to come up with an innovative framework for gathering student feedback. You answered, and I quote, that student feedback would be collected anonymously through various ballots around campus and digitally. Isn't CERTU feedback and CERTU survey and ESSFS already present? And we do know that response rates aren't the highest. So how do you expect to physically have students cast their ballots? And if so, where is the innovativeness regarding this framework to collect student feedback?
Hello, yeah. So for one, I think the ballot idea is still definitely in the works. I don't think it'll be implemented, but it was just an idea because there's a lot of loopholes in it. Secondly, for the feedback that's different from the ES form is that this would be throughout the year and anytime they want to through anonymous Google forms that would be given on the social media platforms. So I get that it's not innovative, but it's definitely effective. So yeah.
A small follow-up question to that. You said that this will be available at any time of the year. So like, how do you gain? So like, let's say some person gives a feedback in week 1 and some person gives a feedback in week 11. So how are you gonna like, come to the middle ground of that? Because like, if you get feedback in week 1 and then again for the same thing, you get feedback in like week 11 for that same particular form, since you said that it's gonna be there the entire semester. So how are you gonna like work with that?
So for one, hopefully by week 11 that issue is solved and this wouldn't come up. But if not, then that is an underlying issue in itself. So it's good that it's brought up again, so you'd have to direct its attention and give it more attention because it's not fixed yet.
So by that, do you mean that the feedback collected from the students are only given to or passed to the lecturers at the end of the semester? Because, for example, one example I could think of is, for example, if a student were to give a feedback in week 2, for example, about, let's say, an issue that is facing, and then in week 8, for example, if let's say a feedback is given again, it could contradict with each other from week 2 feedback and week 8 feedback. So in that case, how would the interpretation be like? And how would you address this issue when you pass it to the lecturers or CE, for example?
So for one, there would be a middle ground that we'd have to reach to with constant communication with the lecturer as well, because if a unit is posing this much feedback or complaints, then yeah, we do have to bring it to their attention. So again, compromising, prioritizing are major things that you'd have to look at to meet in the middle and see how it could make both parties happy.
All right, then we'll move on to the next question.
Could we go ahead? Is that fine? All right. So referring to your election guide, third question's answer, you mentioned about a fair way of allocating resources when one school requires more funds. So here is a scenario for you. Let's say one school requires more funds for their respective events because they have almost finished their quotas during the middle of the semester. As you are discussing it in the meeting, a conflict then arises as some schools find this unfair of the EAC members. As a vice president, how are you going to resolve this conflict and move funds from one school to another, ensuring fairness as you mentioned this in your answer?
I did mention this in the election guide, as a meeting would be called and there would be votes from every school. It doesn't necessarily have to be just the 2 schools that are involved to maintain fairness, and obviously it's in the EAC meetings as well. So this wouldn't pose a conflict because we would have a budget proposal from the beginning. So I don't think any other school would exceed it per se, and if they do think it's fair for them to move it to another school, I think there shouldn't be any problem if everybody agrees or majority agrees.
Let's say a conflict does arise. You said that there shouldn't be, but you don't know how it you can't predict how people react to things. So let's say a conflict does arise, how are you going to resolve it as a vice president?
Could you just specify what kind of conflict you're referring to?
Okay, just try to imagine it as one school, let's just say one school require more fund than the other. So in the meeting, when you address this, and I know there will be a voting system for it, so in that sense, you will follow majority, or usually we follow majority votes, and in that case, you will not satisfy all parties, you will not satisfy all schools. So how do you want to ensure, by moving funds from one school to another, or what's your approach like, to ensure equality and fairness among all the schools altogether?
Okay, so first of all, you can never make everybody happy. That is why a voting system is in place for majority to be happy. And that is basically the system we'll be following, right? Let's say it doesn't hit majority. We would be moving funds from different areas that don't require as much, as I think my predecessors have done as well.
Could you specify which funds, please?
I'm not sure about the confidentiality of it, so I don't want to jeopardize myself right here, but having talked to the current PP, I know that this is something that's being done. Yeah.
Yes.
Have you two worked together before? Have you two worked together before? No. If not, what strategies do you have in place to minimize internal conflicts?
So speaking from experience, we have never met before. The time when I met him was the day the submission was closed for application for participation in this election. So throughout this process since that time I submitted my application till today, we have been working very closely with each other, preparing the election guide, preparing our manifesto. So as of, if let's say any conflict were to arise within ourselves when we are working together, I believe that first thing first would be to understand each other's perspective, because that comes in very important for us to know each other. And then also, I believe as of now, we have a fair understanding of how we do work together. We have to understand how each other's leadership styles and all. So if let's say a conflict do arise, I think the first step would be to understand where we are coming from, to find common ground, because end of the day, the conflict has to be resolved. And similar to any other internal conflicts within, let's just say, the organization of MUSA, is coming together towards a common goal so that everyone can come to alignment and solve it together.
I would like to remind the candidates that we have time for one more question from each party.
So for our last question, can you specify some of your new initiatives that you have planned for the term of 2024?
Okay. So my main initiative, like I mentioned in the introduction, would be to have a Google Drive platform where students can put in their recommendations that help them in each particular unit. So students don't have to go around asking or anything. This would be accessible throughout the year. So again.
Final question, Ms. Aditi. You have a follow-up? I'm afraid we don't have that much time.
Okay, you said there would be more opportunities for cross-collaboration. How would that look like? What would the procedure be for that, or what opportunities would you give for it?
So, as we mentioned earlier in my first question, you had asked me about initiatives. So, the buffer fund having that extra money for a cross-collaborative event as a school rep, so I think that would give one more opportunity for them to use that fund, because that fund would only be open to them if they have a cross-collaborative event with another school. Because see, Kimberly and I believe, even though again I'm saying our predecessors have done a really good job about this, but we do believe there are some areas, for example, like let's say SOP and SAS, that I have never seen a collaboration in my entire time in Monash with them, but it can be possible, it should be possible. So yeah, for that, I think opportunities like that, like we as heads of EAC, we would ensure during meetings that we guide the school reps to have these events. If they come up with ideas, or if they ask us any questions for any ideas or guidance, I think our first guidance part would be towards these collaborative events to bridge those knowledge gaps. So yeah.
That will be all for the Q&A. Thank you, candidates, for participating in that one. Now we'll proceed to Q&A by the OBs. I would like to invite Mr. Raj to please come on the stage and ask questions.
Okay, ready? Okay, question for Aditi first. Can you tell me what is the roles and the responsibilities of the Vice President in the Education Affairs Committee?
Okay, so they chair the EAC meetings. They need to hold them, they need to organize them, and also bring up stuff that was discussed in the APC meetings or CEC meetings or AAB meetings as well, to share it and maintain transparency in the meetings.
All right, great. Question for Akitas. What is the roles and responsibilities of Vice President in maintaining the academic integrity policy? What are the roles and responsibilities of Vice President in maintaining the academic integrity policy?
Thank you, Raj, for the question. So in terms of maintaining the academic integrity policy for as vice presidents, we do believe first of all, I would suggest using platforms and certain other channels, like media channels, which are already present, to address as being advocates for the students, basically addressing their rights, addressing their needs. And then secondly, we could maintain the academic integrity policy by, let's say there is academic misconduct or any breaches, as Kimberly and I, we want our office hours to be like a safe haven for them. They can come to us and it's an open space. They can talk to us and we will guide them no matter if they're like an acquaintance to us or they might be our best friend. We will try and put ourselves in their shoes and like try and guide them for the best, I would say their optimal way of conducting whatever breach. And let's just say like the breach is quite high and there is an APC call for it. As vice presidents, Kimberly and I both will attend and we would like to boost their morale being there as well. So yeah, that's how I think we would like maintain the academic integrity policy.
All right, yeah, great. That answers my question. Okay, moving forward, question for both candidates. How would you ensure optimum advocacy for education rights of students in Monash while upkeeping the standards of Monash education?
Okay, so first of all, giving them the information is the first step. So publicizing it, letting them know, especially new students, would be a great step. Secondly, they can come in anytime for any questions that they do have, and that would be solved, and they could have a session where they do understand completely what their rights are.
All right, Ibrahim and Kimberly?
Okay, so for student advocacy, I touched on it on my first question as well. So as vice presidents, we will work towards promoting right, interests, and well-beings of students. That's the first thing we will do. As advocates, we will ensure that students, they are empowered with the decision-making process, and they can come to us and bring their decisions as well, and which will be heard and which will be implied as well. Secondly, we are focusing on identify students' educational needs and concerns and then take proactive steps in ensuring the student voices are heard. This is again linking towards student empowerment. And we would like to address the student needs and make sure the feedback which is provided, like let's say in CEC and EAC meetings, actually are implemented towards those, gathering data from the students' feedback, whatever we have in place. And yeah. And lastly, I'm again going to touch towards academic misconduct and getting a fair hearing out of them. That's, I think, also falls under advocacy. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be there for them no matter what. So, yeah.
All right, next question is for Aditi. Tell me more about academic misconduct policy and how you would ensure minimal violation of academic integrity of Monash, and how will you, as a vice president, help a student if that happens?
Okay, so for the first part, the integrity rules are no cheating, no copying, no exchange of data of an assignment. I think all of this is kind of mentioned on every assignment page we go to, which is a good thing. So I think students should be well versed in academic integrity rules. Second part of the question was how would I help them? It would be by, first of all, being there for moral support, letting them know that they're not alone in any of these hearings if they do get invited to these hearings. And also let them know the best course of action, because obviously they'll be in a state of mind that they can't think, and that's what we're here for, to help them out.
Okay, great. Question for both candidates. How will you plan to navigate potential conflict of interest when allocating resources and funds among schools, and what measures will be in place to maintain transparency and fairness in your decision-making processes?
Okay, so for one, like I've said in my election guide as well, this would be done by initially allocating equal amount of funds, but later on, given that some schools may have more educational events than the other, we'd call a meeting with all the school reps, have a voting system where they can choose to tell us if they think it's worthy. And if that doesn't go through and this event is, let's say, important, we would shift funds from other places and accommodate for that as well.
How will you plan to navigate potential conflict of interest when allocating resources and fund among the schools, and what measures will be in place to maintain transparency and fairness in your decision making?
Okay. So this question relates to the third question on the election guide about fund allocations and making sure there is fairness. So how our approach would be like is that in the event, so we will ensure that all the schools will plan in advance when they allocate their own budget, making sure that they fully utilize or at least within the budget and not exceed. But in the event where, let's just say they require more funds, more budget because there was improper planning, there was lack of planning and lack of consideration that one event requires more funds, what we can suggest for the schools to do is to collaborate with each other. And by collaborating with each other, like just now Ibrahim and I, we mentioned that we'll be providing the buffer funds. And with this collaboration, they will be provided the buffer funds and they can use it for cross-collaboration events.
Okay, great. Okay, again, question for both candidates. What concrete steps will you take to foster collaboration between students, teachers, and administrators to enhance the quality of education? And what metrics will you use to measure the success of these efforts?
To act as a bridge between faculty and students. I think that's our job as MUSA candidates in the first place. So I think reaching out to faculty from the issues of the students through given feedback would maintain a channel of communication, because we're the middlemen and we would be in charge of doing this. What was the second part of your question?
How will you measure the success of these efforts?
Success of?
How will you measure the success of these efforts?
I think the result would kind of measure the success if the given feedback is acted upon by the given authority or the student in charge. That would be the measure of it. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So about your question, thank you for the question. What we can do as for promoting collaboration between the students, teachers, and also the administration would be, for example, in the meeting with the head of schools, in the CEC meeting, what can be done is us as middlemen between the student body and the students, we can raise any concerns about academics related things and raise it up to the head of schools. And in that way, you will refer to direct message passing over to them, and they can address the issue pertaining to whatever area it arises.
Okay, great. Okay, question for Akitas. In regard to your fourth manifesto point, could you elaborate on the decision-making process based on feedback evidence? And how will you gather and utilize this feedback to enhance visibility and prioritize students' interests?
Hello. Okay. Thank you, Rod, so much for that question. So you said that how would we analyzing the data. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, having those statistical diagrams and charts, since it's a Likert scale, it's going to be 1 to 5. We can easily make a pie chart, and which can be used for EAC, CEC, even APC meetings at the end. Like I'm talking about the APC form meetings, not the AP breach meetings.
Right.
So in terms of that, I think that data will be easily able to analyze, because even in an election guide as well, you had asked us on how we can establish an innovative framework to consistently gather and analyze data. So this framework can consistently gather data, because I don't think so, we will need the manpower to sit down and read through every single question, given how SSLC, ESSFS, and SETU surveys are, where there are big chunks of answers. So yeah, in terms of that, I think analyzing the data using the technologies and AI available, as you mentioned that AI was also a big topic, part of the assessment subcommittee, using AI in MUSA. So I think we can use those resources available and we can analyze the data easily.
Right, but let me just clarify one more thing. I specifically asked about your decision-making process based on the feedback.
I'm so sorry I missed that. I missed
You
that
can
part.
answer now.
So our decision-making process based on that feedback. So if I give you like a scenario, let's say like basically it's regarding and welfare. Basically, like majority of the students want to see like a change on campus, and using like Monash confessions as well, we can read through and see what students actually want in terms of welfare. Let's say like one small thing is they want a particular change on campus or in the student lounge. Using that data we get, we are straight going to go towards the particular departments, FMD as well, in that sense. And when the meetings, we can like basically tell them about the initiatives, we can talk to them, and then they will decide what they have to do, because we will provide the data, we will provide the feedback from students, and it's up to them if they will weigh the pros and cons out, see if it's feasible, depending on the budgets as well, since all the budgets are planned at the start of the year, at the start of the tenure. So yeah, all of that will matter, and then we will take into consideration for decision making.
Okay, but just to remind you, Monash confession cannot be admissible evidence for us to justify the changes we can make in the campus for the students. Okay, last question for you guys before I move to Aditi. You guys mentioned to innovate the Monash study app to collect feedback. However, it is a great idea. There are pre-existing feedback forums such as ESSFS, SETU, and U-Review, which you didn't mention. Do you think the Monash study feedback feature might get lost in the process?
So basically, the entire innovative idea we brought was so that it's easier for students, and it's basically to motivate students, because they use Monash Study App every day. You, me, everyone here, majority uses Monash Study App every day. When all those forms are in one place, they just have to click the button and then the forms are there. They don't have to go around scanning QR codes and even like opening links by sending so many emails, because we do know emails get lost with every other email. So yeah, in that case, it will just make it easy for students to access those forms. And secondly, I do notice like there will be like, when there are QR codes out there, you have to print banners, you have to print papers and stick it on notice boards. Those costs will also decrease with that, because Monash Study App is an in-house built app. Monash University will be able to develop that feature for free. So yeah.
Okay, great. Aditi, do you have anything to add? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I just
go
want to
ahead.
add on, just like how, assessments, or when you have classes, you're able to use the app and set notifications to you. I think that would be a good platform also when there is a student feedback launch on the app, to send timely reminders that don't need to be like every day, but it could be like every two times a week, to remind students to complete the student feedback or student survey that would take like less than 3 minutes, as mentioned.
All right, great. Okay, question for Aditi. Let's address the elephant in the room. How do you plan to balance the demands of serving as a bridge between students and MUSA with your other responsibilities as a solo vice president candidate, as it is a two-person job, and what strategy will you employ to ensure effective communication with all students?
Hello, yeah. So for the first part of the question, most of my duties end this semester, so I will have more time to give to the vice presidency role. Secondly, finding an interim is already in the works. I wouldn't be naming names because that's not finalized yet. But by the end of this year, should I win, I will have an interim ready and would have them approved by MSc.
Okay, great. In your third manifesto point, increasing awareness and the reach of MUSA, it is something that would concern primarily the publicity departments, or for future the publicity division's job scope. Thus, explain how this would fall under the VP job scope, and what innovative ways do you plan to increase awareness and the reach of MUSA?
So for one, yes, it's directly under publicity, but I think if people don't know about MUSA, especially new students, they wouldn't know who to come to for feedback, and that's our jurisdiction. So that's kind of the long run game of this. Innovative ideas would, again, I think they're already established. Orientation, maybe posters around, publicity, a lot of it. So those would be some of the main points to publicize and let them know that this is a channel they can appeal to.
Okay, final question for both candidates. how do you plan to handle situations where your vision for MUSA may differ from the broader student body's expectation or the administration's policies, given the mixed bag of candidates this year from different parties and independent? And how will you effectively advocate for your stance while maintaining collaborative relationships?
Could you repeat the first part of it?
Yeah. How do you plan to handle situations where your vision for MUSA may differ from the broader student body's expectations or the administration's policies, given the mixed bag of candidates this year? And how will you ensure effective collaboration with the whole team while advocating for student rights?
Can I go first? So basically, my main initiative I've checked and it's in line with MUSA's policies. So that shouldn't be a problem, but I will bring it up with the OBs and respected parties to ensure that everybody's on the same page. The second part of it, collaboration, I think it would be done through meetings, especially the first few where everyone's trying to know each other's work styles, get to know each other. So that would be the building bridge for this.
Okay, great. Ibrahim and Kimberly. Yeah, sure. How do you plan to handle situations where your vision for MUSA may differ from the broader student body's expectation or the administration's policies? Given the mixed bag of candidates this year from different parties and independent, how will you effectively advocate for your stance while maintaining collaborative relationships?
Okay, thank you, Raj, for your question. So I do understand and I do know that there are quite a lot of candidates from different parties and also independent candidates. So I think what's important is when after the whole team is selected and once the whole team is formed, elected into the student association, the first thing that should happen is during the MSc meeting or making sure that everyone's goals for their plans for the year ahead for MUSA is aligned and making sure that everyone knows, they know each other well, so that conflicts don't arise in the process of planning anything, and making sure that everyone in the team knows not just each other, knows each other's priorities. I would say that would be an important factor because commitments aside from, let's just say, MUSA, would come into play when, let's say conflict arises in the team. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Also, adding on to Kimberly, what she said, that basically as vice presidents, and we could even like tell this initiative to the president, I do believe in a lot of internal team bonding. I know it's already established, but I do believe in like more team bonding. As you mentioned that there are independent candidates, there are candidates with different views, there are candidates we don't even know of, and we will all come together. Let's say if we are both, we will work together for 1 year. So before like going through the entire training process, I would suggest on having like a good internal bonding where we all are on track and then we all have a meeting. I know it would be like an informal meeting, it's just a suggestion, but like we could like list out the objectives and goals we have for like MUSA's long-term progress. So in terms of that, then we can come towards the middle ground because once we all are in one same page together, we can make a lot of difference because unity is strength at the end of the day.
Okay, great. Good luck, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj, for the questions. I would like to request the audience to please maintain silence to maintain the decorum of the debates. Gentlemen at the back, can I ask you to please maintain silence? Thank you very much. Now we'll proceed to Q&A from the audience.
All right, so my first question is for Aditi. You spoke a bit about establishing a drive with resources for students, right? I think this is a really great initiative. It really helps students. However, when you try to establish such a drive with this many resources, you might find that some students are hesitant to actually give these resources. So there might be a lack of resources to include in your drive. So how would you combat this challenge? Tell me more.
So I have accounted for this because it's a new initiative, hasn't been implemented before. So the first step would be to encourage the school reps to actually put in their units and their recommendations for each unit. So there's something that's going on in there. Additionally, ask every MUSA member to kind of help with this initiative to get the ball rolling so that more students are actually encouraged to see it or to give more or contribute more to it.
All right, thank you. My next question is for the Equitas candidates. In your manifesto, you've spoken about strengthening the HEXCO relationships and working towards MUSA's long-term goals. Could you tell me the members in the MUSA HEXCO and also what your long-term plans are for MUSA?
As far as our knowledge goes, we just know that HEXCO would be us and the current MUSA president.
That is incorrect. But you can move on to telling me your long-term goals.
Okay, so what we mean in terms of like long-term objectives with working with actually in terms of HEXCO, we were actually meaning working with the MUSA president towards MUSA's long-term goals, which would be like seeing where MUSA, like basically I know MUSA is currently established right now, and instead of like building from the foundation, why don't we like build towards like what we can see in 5 years? So even though this won't come under us completely, but goals such as like continuing to uphold the internal bonding. As I mentioned in Raj's answer as well, internal bonding is very important since we all will be from different parties, we are diverse, we have different ways of thinking and doing things. So yeah, if we have that continued internal bonding, we can make things work. Secondly, we need to improve MUSA as a brand and its image to represent the student body. And we also need to emphasize on student feedback because as I mentioned earlier that the data given and data and evidence-based decision making would basically enhance evidence-based decision making would just work better in that way. And also I would also say like another goal could be like I know this has already been done, but improve on communication with staff. That is like particular other departments, I would say like student life, FMD, finance, and continuous restructuring and utilizing efficiently the resources of MUSA available.
All right, so my next question is also for Equitas. You guys have talked about establishing buffer funds to sort of allocate budget later on. So at the start of your term, you're supposed to make the annual budget for MUSA. Now, for all departments, they're supposed to come up with their budget and they have to justify what these expenses are. So you can't simply make a fund, say this is the buffer fund and justify that to Monash Finance. You have to give valid reasoning as to what this expense is going to be. So with this in mind, how would you say you're going to establish a buffer fund at the start of the year?
I'm afraid your time to discuss is up.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Rashwan, for that question. So you mentioned like how are we gonna like claim that buffer fund at the start as a budget proposal. So Kimberly and I will ensure that we basically have a thorough pre-planning, and I think that we would also, based on the feedback, we could like, based on the data from like past events, like the events in like the past 10 years, we could look at their budget proposals and then think how much money was actually needed for particular things. I'm not suggesting on shrinking any of the funds from, let's say, the student subsidy fund or the student initiative fund, the TEDx, and even the EAC funds. But I'm saying that we would be able to claim a particular amount as a buffer fund, and let's say we do need more amount, we could be able to pool in resources, which has been done in the past from the Student Initiative Fund and Student Subsidy Fund, which has been given to other departments. Instead of using that for other departments, we could use that as our buffer fund for the EAC. So yeah, I think we will be able to do that we would be able to claim that.
All right, so my last question is for Aditi. Given that you are a solo candidate, you will have to appoint an interim if you come into office. Could you tell me a bit more in detail what the exact procedure is to appoint an interim VP?
Okay, so for one, scouting is already happening from my side, where I would choose a candidate based off of our compatibility. I would then proceed to introduce this candidate to the MSc, and they would approve or reject, based off of which they would be interim till the by-elections, and then they would be appointed VP alongside me.
All right, that's all from me. Thank you.
Any further questions from the audience?
Hello, hello. Hello, candidates. So my question is, what are the current flagship events that the VP department handles? And please name them. And how do you plan to improve based on the issues that you think there is?
Hello. Yeah, the main flagship event would be TEDx Monash, as well as the Monash 101, but that is moved to activities in the new MUSA structure. So the main focus would be just on TEDx, as well as maybe initiating workshops that are educational for all the schools. And to improve on certain aspects would be, I guess, more publicity, because that is one aspect that students do look forward to, or that's the way they know that this exists, and maybe more time management.
Can we turn on the mic, please?
Test, okay. So as for our plans for improving TEDx, so one event is Monash 101, but we know is being handled by activities. And for TEDx, our plan would be, as vice presidents will be in charge of recruiting the secretary and treasurer. And this also includes recruiting the TEDx in charge, which is the TEDx president, to man the whole committee. And we will also, as part of our roles in handling TEDx, we would be providing advisory support, so any assistance that the TEDx team would require, we will be providing them on behalf.
Okay, just a follow-up on the TEDx, right? I think, Adipta, you touched on publicity. So other than that, what do you think is also a major issue? Because TEDx is a really huge flagship event, requires a lot of preparation. So maybe perhaps you can just emphasize on those issues that you plan to solve.
So starting off with would be getting a subcommittee to help out with all of this, because as it is a big event, one person wouldn't be able to do it alone. I'm not sure about the turn up, because I've never been to this one before. But again, I think potential challenges would be turn up, or time management, or getting people to even talk or attend per se. Yeah.
Yeah, on the issues that you plan to solve, maybe give an elaboration specifically and to why you want to touch upon those solutions.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, so you mentioned about how you want to improve on the TEDx, right? And the operations of it. So I just require an elaboration based on your understanding of what the issues are.
We didn't mention actually like any improvements, because in our both of our opinions, again, as Aditi mentions, none of us have been to TEDx event before. We are not, if I'm being really honest with you, we are not aware of like too much of how the event is run down. But the improvements I would suggest would be like, since it's a flagship event from VP, is that we will ensure that the person we like recruit for TEDx in charge is a really suitable candidate by going through a thorough like interview structure. And and we will also have a role, like we will just sit in when they also recruit their subcommittee for TEDx. because if we have a good subcommittee, if they are like resourceful, if they know how to work together and have that internal bonding in place and have that objectives together, I think they will be able to make TEDx a really big event in Monash. Like, since it's already a big event, I do not know how we can improve much towards it. My suggestion, one would be, I'm not too sure, but like having more like international recognition, because see, TEDx is worldwide recognized. Having international speakers coming and speaking, and having most outside students, like university students outside Monash University, coming and looking at the event, like participating in that event, I think that would be like a major win-win for us.
Okay, thank you. One last question.
Proceed.
On both of your manifestos, you have mentioned for the Equitas candidates that you want to increase branding, right? So that you can also like encourage for the schools to increase whatever initiatives that they have. So it sounds like you're doing the publicities department job on branding, because these particular schools have their own respective communication and promoting channels, especially Instagram. So what difference or new that you're going to do with this particular proposal that you're doing, and also like extending it to Adipta that you mentioned on MUSA awareness, given that the VPs do not have a social media platform to leverage on. So how do the both of all of the candidates want to like do this?
Hello, yeah. Okay, so like I did mention with Raj's question as well, that publicity, it would be a collaboration with their department, because if people don't know that this exists, they wouldn't be coming to us with feedback. So I understand we don't have a platform for it, but we do have a means to collaborate on this.
As for what we think, firstly, what we can do is in increasing, what we mean by increasing branding of school bodies is not to say that we are taking over publicity's job, but more like we are working very closely with them. Because what students, as for what I know, what most students think of MUSA is they just advertise events, Instagram stories, Instagram posts. And most of students, they don't actually know what services MUSA actually provides. For example, when they in an event where they experience academic breach. So as such, when we work closely with publicity, we are able to more closely advertise what do we do in the student association besides just organizing events, because it goes more than just that. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for the questions. Any further question from the audience? We have time for one question from the audience.
Testing, okay. Hi guys, I wanted to ask, right, you've elaborated a lot on academics and also on TEDx. I wanted to ask, what exactly can you elaborate on is the job scope of VPs outside of academics, beyond academics? So we're talking about in MUSA, what are you expected to do outside of just take care of the academics agenda, which is already mostly handled by the school representatives? Thanks.
I think one of the major tasks would be deputizing for the president in his absence or her absence. Other than that, I don't think there's anything more to it because of the restructuring, because a lot of merchandise has moved out, initiatives or events have been moved out. So it's solely educational, but also kind of leading when the president is absent.
So basically, like, as you know, our predecessors have also done this. They've divided the VP's role into education and administrative. So our answer is basically asking the job portfolio for administrative. So firstly, it's deputizing. If the president is not there, even for like MSc, we must appoint a chair when we are also not there. I think that's one of the job scopes. It is also to report to MSc and extraordinary general meetings. Basically, even though you said not related to academics, but like I think like that VP who has the administrative job, like basically that he has to sit in for like the APC assessment subcommittee meeting, and even CEC meetings, and even AAB meetings. Even though they don't have to conduct it, they still have to join that. And in terms of like another job scope would be keeping track of all the funds. And at the end of the day, as VP, its majority, the role is overshadowed because it's all about delegation, liaising, going for external events. So yeah, I think That would be the job scope for an administrative VP.
Okay, I think I'll just take 30 seconds to elaborate on the point of what, give you guys more context of what the job of VP should include. Whatever you just stated is true. That's part of VP's job, but it's actually only 40% of what the VP's job is on a daily basis. I'm also the part of the architects of the restructuring blueprint. So the VP's job is not just to take care of academics and the funds at the EAC. The majority of it is on the admin side. In fact, it's all going to be on the admin side based on the restructuring basis. So all of that work that needs to be done, it's all on a project management basis. It means you'll be liaising with all the different university departments. By deputizing for president, that's in an official function. But when it comes to project management, right, the president is in charge of overseeing the entire general direction that MUSA is advancing towards. But the vice president is the main project manager for any miscellaneous projects that MUSA has to deal with. That includes liaising with GenSec on the HR and administrative agenda. Okay, so just a little extra for you guys. Okay, I'll stop here.
Thank you for the question. So we'll only take one question from our online stream since we are short for time. This question is for the Equitas candidates. The question is, would you say that being a part of a party that's most likely going to be the majority of MUSA 2024 due to many uncontested positions leads to having a hive mind mentality, as in feeling obliged or almost biased to just agree with all your former party mates' initiatives? I'm afraid your time to discuss is up.
Even though we are running as a party, I believe that while it may give us... So as we are running as a party, I believe that it is important for us, even though we are running against independent candidate, I think the important thing is for us to be treating each other fairly also, not just after this election, because not just after this debate, there will be still an election ongoing after that.
And in terms of the question, it stated like about us being obliged towards like our predecessors, like initiatives. If you look at our election guide and our manifesto, none of our initiatives have been taken inspiration from our predecessors. We do agree our predecessors did a really good job in their tenure, but whatever initiatives we've come out, it's just been both of us as a single entity and not as a party or like taking inspiration from people who are in our party as well. So yeah.
Thank you for answering that question. I'll allow one more question, please.
Okay, I have very one short question now. So then I have another a more structured question. So may I know what is the Vice President's role in the APC and also in the misconduct hearings?
The main role is basically help the student that was called in for this meeting to give them tips on how they should answer, but we're not allowed to talk in these meetings. And to kind of be there in the meeting as moral support, to let them know that they're not alone in this.
So in terms of APC, there's actually two types of APC. That'd be one APC, which is for the breaching, and one would be AP form. So basically the AP form, which happens at the end of the semester, is basically, it is a hearing which essentially diagnoses and addresses the areas of concern regarding students' academic progress. Should they fail to meet those progress, they will be called upon for that hearing. It's basically like, in simple terms, I would explain to you saying that, let's say a student gets all HDs and then they randomly fail one unit. So for that, they will raise a concern as a school and they will call them for that hearing. And in terms of academic breach, firstly, there are different types of breaches. There'll be a breach where the levels of risk, I don't know the correct termings for it, but it would be like you fail the entire unit, you fail the assessment, you get expelled, or it could be even like an academic warning. So depending on that, the students would try and reach out to us. And then we would just guide them in a very unbiased way for that hearing. And in terms of that academic beach hearing, if it's a very major one, it can also call for an APC meeting. And for that, Kimberly and I will ensure we will be there for moral support.
That's called a misconduct hearing, just so you know. Basically, and also one thing to clarify, it's not that students simply fail the unit and they get called into APC. There are two requirements to be in the APC hearing. Number one is you failed the same unit 3 times. And number two, according to your course progress, at a certain time in your course, you have to fulfill a certain number of credit points. So APC is APC, misconduct hearing is misconduct hearing. I hope you know that. And this is something that you should know. And yes, I agree with the answers that the VP's role is only to support the students and giving resources for them to endure through the hearing and not directly being involved in the hearing, because that's the role of the school reps. Okay, next question, and the last question. I understand that there's a member of Equitas and the independent candidate. Both of you are from engineering, right? And both of you are, may I know if both of you are involved in the year reps? Okay, yes? Then would both of you know that there's a feedback platform called U-Review? Okay. So throughout this whole debate, in regards to feedback collection, there's always this back and forth on what's the best way to collect feedback. However, none of you mentioned the existence of these platforms that have already been present in certain schools, and evaluate from there and see whether it can be pushed to all the schools. May I know what is the reason why, or is there, to your opinion, a better way to actually collect feedback instead of just the U-Review platform?
Okay, so from what I understand in U-Reviews, my department basically, there's not a lot of reviews to begin with, which is a massive problem. But I think that throughout the years, this has been an issue, and if it's not being solved, a new initiative should come in place to try it out at least.
In my opinion, I think Aditi just answered the same thing what I was going to say, as you do know, like, the student feedback it's not the highest in terms of U-Review, because when we go for SSLC meetings, it's like really hard for us to gather that particular data which is given and like preach it to the unit coordinators. So yeah, having another initiative would take in place, but like I do not blame the U-Review platform itself. I just hope like it could be more accessible, like, you know, our media channels and all the departments try their best to market this, but it's at the end of the day, it just depends on the students to having to fill it out.
Okay, I think I'll add it with a clarification or just advice. It's not to say that U-Review has not been pushed out to all the students. In fact, I was a project manager, I was developer, and I was the one that pushed for it to essentially Professor Beverly herself. And there is a reason why the platform is still not being adopted by the schools and why ESSFS still exists. And I won't say the answer now. I wish either of you, regardless if you're VP or not, if you're still involved in this academic space, to figure it out yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Now we'll proceed to closing statements by the candidates. Ms. Aditi Gupta, please.
Hello. Thank you for all your interest in making our uni better. If given the opportunity, I promise to try my best to do this position justice. I hope my manifesto resonated with you and your ideologies. In the end, at the risk of sounding cringy, I just want to say that it's not just a vote, it's your voice, your future, and the change you wish to see. Vote for what you believe in and may the best candidate win. Thank you.
To begin with, I would like to thank the Election Commission, the current office bearer, Raj Kamal and Kirara. Thank you, Aditi. We immensely appreciate your healthy competition. And lastly, to the audience, thank you for joining us and for your questions. Your presence and support mean a lot to us, as we want to express our deep appreciation. The journey ahead is one that we do not take lightly, and we are committed to dedicating ourselves fully to the betterment of this student community.
Vote for us on the 12th of October at 10 a.m. as we, along with your support, will ensure to make a positive difference and fulfill your needs in making sure the calendar year 2024 is a memorable one. Thank you once again for your time, your trust, and your support. I'm Ibrahim.
And I am Kimberly, and we are checking out now.
Thank you for the closing statements. That will be all for the debates for the vice presidency. We'll be back shortly for the last debate of the last day for the president. So please stay tuned. Thank you very much.